Everyone, welcome to another episode of Dynasty Underdog. I'm your host, Uriah Dawkins. With me tonight, Billy Beeman. What's up, bud?
Not much, man. Super stoked to be here, dude. Such an excellent weekend of football, man. Like that's just, I mean, we could say week. I guess it was Thursday, Friday, almost the whole damn weekend. We got Sunday and then Monday. Yeah, man. It was just such a good start to the season. I mean, it wasn't perfect football, definitely a lot of sloppy football, but there were some really exciting games, really good games. I had a great weekend. What about you?
Yeah, same thing. I mean, anytime the Cowboys with the dub, I'm pretty happy. Fantasy wise, we'll talk about everything, but I mean, all in all, it's pretty good. Some good showings from some rookies, and let's get into it. We'll
Hell
start with
yeah,
some news and
absolutely.
some nonsense. So, Christian McCaffrey dealing with an Achilles, we call it Achilles tendonitis. So, late scratch before the Monday night game, going to be out for, I don't know, another week, another 2 weeks. I'm not a doctor, so.
Yeah, that did not look good, or not does not look good. It just doesn't sound good. Like anything with your Achilles, you want to avoid at all costs, right? Especially at the running back position. I mean, anything that happens there, that's season-ending, potentially career-ending for a guy at CMC's age. So I can understand why the 49ers are going to be really cautious with that. So yeah, I mean that's a killer to the contenders out there. I don't really know. I wouldn't be honestly. That's one of the injuries that I probably wouldn't be like, oh, let's go buy low on an elite asset. Like maybe not. I don't know. Maybe not. I mean, at some point these guys do fall off, but that said, Jordan Mason looked absolutely incredible in his stead in that Monday night game. So, I mean, he'll get the job done. I don't think they have any reason to rush him back. So, yeah, you got plenty of reason to worry as a CMC manager.
Absolutely. I did see a trade offer that Edwin, fantasy doctor, we've had him on. Yeah. He sent a.
Listen to me try to do that.
He sent an offer out for CMC in one of his leagues. So maybe he's not as worried, but who knows? Could be hopium.
Fair enough. I'm no doctor.
No doctor. He's a doctor. We're not. So hey, Puka Nacua, PCL sprain. He went down, catching a ball, hit his knee, and then he got hit again a little bit later. He's going to be out. Is he on IR?
They did say he's going IR. Yes.
Okay, so that's minimum 4 weeks. Back from previous injury, Cooper Kupp got like 21 targets or something like that. Like
yeah, back to his old self.
44% target share.
Yeah, that's absolutely insane. I mean, yeah, obviously this is one of those, unlike the CMC situation, where I'd be like, yeah, let's go buy some Puka, right? Like, let's go see if we can attack that situation. We've had some people in the Discord, ask about that and, give us some of their, screenshots of their teams. Like, what can we do here? And I think that there's some opportunity to combine some players and go ahead and get a Puka, especially if somebody has, a really, high-end contending roster and wants to add to that team. You could maybe send over some age pieces or something like that. But I wonder more so, with the explosion of production that we saw with Cooper Kupp, can we now get a first for Cooper Kupp again? Because it seemed like we were like out of that range maybe. And with that kind of production, we might be right back in there. Would you pay a first for Cooper Kupp? Like if you thought you were going to get somewhere between the 110 and 112 or 109 and 112 or something like that, would you be willing to send that pick now?
Me personally, I'd probably be scared to still do that. But look, if he's going to do something similar to this for the next 4 weeks, or even like 85% of this, like I think it's worth it as a contender. But this would be a situation where if like you're not contending and you still had Kupp on your roster for whatever reason, like I'm trying to squeeze every last drop I can out of them. But a first round pick, I don't know. It's going to be rough. I think anybody holding them is going to want it. You just got to have it stones to actually put your picks where your mouth is.
I like that. Yeah, I mean, I think that's actually a reasonable take on it. And for me, like if I go and try to buy Puka now versus go and try to buy Puka 2 months from now, 3 months from now, is somebody going to try to charge me 2 first? Like, no, right? Like, is somebody going to try to charge me more is my point? Probably, maybe slightly bit more, but probably not much more. And am I going to probably get him for a first still if I need him for that contending run? My worry, like your worry is probably he can get injured too. Like he could also have a PCL injury or an MCL injury in the next game, right? Like he's not immune just because he's the target hog there now, which is great for fantasy. Like, yeah, we need to go after those pieces, but I don't want to this early on just throw away my picks. Just it's week 1, right? Like there's a lot of football to be played. So we don't need to get over our skis too fast here, I don't think.
Yeah. Anchoring bias. The anchoring effect is a philosophical phenomenon in which individual judgments or decisions are influenced by a reference point or anchor, which can be completely irrelevant. What do you got there for us?
Yeah, I mean, I just wanted to throw out kind of the definition of this. Is something that I've talked about a bit, kind of reaching back a little bit to the Superflex Super Show episode I was on as well, and it's really heading into, the meat of the show today. Our main segment, kind of, it's really, framing things, I think, in a way where we're trying to negate that anchoring bias, right? And so we'll get into it in a few minutes here, but I did want to throw that out there, that we are dealing with that. It's week 1. We're all super excited. I was just talking about it. Like, this was an excellent weekend of football. We're super excited about what we're seeing. We're seeing some, pretty cool rookie performances, some bounce back performances, all that stuff. And I think the anchoring bias thing is real, right? Like, we can get caught up in what we're seeing, the first thing we're seeing, and think that that's just the new the new norm, and it's not always that, right? Like we're often influenced by the first thing we see, so be careful with that as we work through the things we're talking about today. We're not doing like a total recap or anything like that, but we're going to be getting into some of the narratives that are unfolding that we aren't necessarily buying into, and I think we need to keep anchoring bias in mind as we get into that today. So I wanted to throw that out there kind of before we talk into everything else we're going to talk about with week 1.
Yeah, I wanted to, if I had known this was going to pop up, I wish I could credit who did this study, but they've done it since like 2016, and looking at preseason ADP versus week 1 finishes and the correlation to future success for the rest of the year. And preseason ADP kills it every year, year after year after year. If you could look at the top finishes from quarterbacks, wide receivers, tight ends, all that from week 1 last year, I just go and look. It's not that hard. None of those guys finished anywhere near where they finished in week 1. So there's a lot of variance there. I like to say this all the time. Football is oblong. Like it doesn't, it's not a round ball. It bounces funny. So definitely don't overreact to week 1.
That's a great pull there, Uriah. Seriously, a really, really great pull, because that's something I don't think too many people think about enough and understand, that like what we're seeing, the finishes we see initially are not what you see week to week, and you can't take that as the average. So
like look at Tutu Atwell's week 1 last year. I think it was insane. So
yeah,
there's others, but that's the first one that comes to mind. All right,
absolutely.
Living in a fantasy, Billy. What do you got here?
Oh yeah. So this is a quick one, but it's just something I was thinking about. Just thinking about shit. But as we dive full steam into like the point scoring season, I do want to offer perspective. Like that's kind of what we're talking about here. And something I've come to realize about myself is like my bias seeps in too much when I don't like a profile, but he's also a value, right? And I feel like we got to work to like attack those situations and fight the urge to follow the evaluation to a T, right? When you could be accurate, but they can also be a good fantasy producer, because fantasy football doesn't always match reality. So we need to accept that and adjust our actions accordingly, right? And I mean, like Rachaad White was kind of probably a good example of that last season. There's plenty of examples, but it's just more of that thought process of, of understanding we're doing a lot of work and that work matters, but also being able to pull yourself out of, your evaluations to understand that like it's okay to like step outside of that thought process, that box, and tell yourself you're wrong. You know what I mean? And be like, or tell yourself like these things don't align, and they could be, they might not be the best player in the world, but they might be a really good fantasy player and also a value at that. So you need to acquire those players and not avoid them, right? All the time. I think Jake does do a good job of staying pretty grounded with this kind of stuff and avoiding specific profiles and understanding that like he's going to miss certain players while doing that. And I think I'm trying to thread the needle a little bit on that, and maybe too much. So there's definitely a balance there, but it's just something I've been thinking about and trying to, I guess, keep myself a little bit more grounded as we head into the point scoring season.
It's great advice. So valuation volatility season. Shout out to AJ from the Discord.
Mm-hmm.
This is a great question. This is something that we should be asking ourselves. Who do we think will greatly fluctuate in value post week 2? And
Yeah.
you have a couple listed here, and off the top of my head, those would be probably the first two I would think of too.
Yeah, it's harder because it's funny. AJ actually asked this in reference to post week 1, and we had talked about it a little bit in the Discord. But then when I looked at KTC, I was like, holy crap! Like if we had tried to predict some of these, it would have been interesting. But we might get some more value out of it going into week 2, where things are a little bit more evened out, right? It's not like we're going to get so many fluctuations going into week 2. We're still going to get quite a few, but not as many, obviously, because we're starting to see things unfold, like Jameson Williams, like that's going to, ignite the community and launch his stock up. So what I came up with here, the ones that I thought were a little bit more actionable, a little bit more interesting. Mark Andrews, right? Because we just saw Isaiah Likely absolutely dominate. Everybody's probably worried about Mark Andrews, but I think, I watched every snap of his because I wanted to really understand what was going on there. And I think, the offensive line issues, the fact that he was bracketed often during the game, there's some opportunities for him for sure that were missed. And so I really wasn't too concerned with it. And I thought they were just getting, the easy targets out to what the defense was giving them. And that was Isaiah Likely. But now he gets the Raiders, who couldn't stop Colby Parkinson.
Mm-hmm.
And, not that LA is throwing like tons of talent at you anyway, but still, I think Mark Andrews going into that situation might be a little bit more successful, and we could see that bounce back both in production and in value, right? So that's one that I'm looking at. And then the other one would be Marvin Harrison Jr., right? Like we cannot see another performance like that. That was
It can't
insane.
happen, right?
That was insane. Like I don't know if Kyler is just this wide receiver 1, tight end 1 spammer, and he just can't see the rest of the field because he's dancing around too much or whatever it may be. I don't know what the situation is, but I really got to think that this is not the norm, and that we're going to see one of two things though. We're either going to see this happen again, and Marv's value is going to actually plummet because it hasn't quite taken a deep dive yet. So it's going to, I think one more week and that happens, and you can really attack the profile. Like if he doesn't do well again, you're going to be able to take advantage of that and probably get him at a value. And I would definitely take a shot at that because I don't think that he's, a bust type talent. I can't, that doesn't compute for me. Or he's really good and his value rises back to normal or exceeds, the current value. So I could see that value fluctuate quite a bit depending on what happens. So this is a big week. I do think week 2 is a pretty big week for Marvin Harrison Jr.'s dynasty value. So hold on tight. Don't overreact if you're a Marvin Harrison Jr. owner this week or next week. Try to be patient with that. Definitely try to be patient with that.
I think it's a good shout outs. Yeah, I mean, Marv has another down week, and we're having is Marvin Harrison Jr. the next QJ type discussions? It's going to happen.
Stop.
Who actually had a decent little game yesterday, by the way.
He definitely had a drop in there somewhere. I know he did.
Yeah, I mean, but every slant that he got, he hit. So I think they just need to put him in the slot and hit him with the slants. He could be the next Michael Thomas. So.
Wow, goes from can't catch to catch everything. I don't know, man. That is that's a massive turnaround, complete 180. Yeah. That'd be impressive.
I'll never change. I'm loyal. All right. No, those are two good ones that just stick out. Very good ones. Marvin Harrison Jr. That one was crazy. If you look at Mark Andrews, just his splits going up against Kansas City, they've done this the whole every single time they've met.
Mm-hmm.
So I wouldn't be worried about Mark Andrews.
Yeah.
If I was Lamar Jackson and Mark Andrews is getting covered like that, I'm going to throw to Isaiah Likely. That just is what it is.
Yeah, and they don't have anybody else. And Isaiah Likely is playing a completely different position than a tight end necessarily. At least from what I saw, that he's lining out wide. He's lining up out wide. He's doing a whole tons of different stuff in that offense. I mean, he was playing traditional tight end in line sometimes. He was doing a lot of different stuff. But to me, he is what he was being advertised as all through camp. What Dan was telling us in our Discord, the resident Ravens fan that he was going to be a chess piece, right? He's going to be a chess piece, and that's what they're playing him as. I don't think he's going to be that successful every week. I don't think that's sustainable at all. I think Isaiah Likely is good, but we'll get into that a little bit more, I think, as we get into the show here. So I do think that's really interesting, though, from AJ. I like the kind of phrasing, the valuation volatility season. It really kind of frames it well for me in terms of thinking about where we're at. Like, there's going to be a lot of fluctuation in values, and we need to kind of keep our finger on the pulse is pretty much where we're at with that.
All right. So here's a little bit of rookie watch news. Just we don't have to talk about much of it, but just a little interesting fact that here's a list of rookies who led their teams in targets and receptions in week 1. Now, if I had asked you how many do you think did that, or their names, I bet you wouldn't come close to this list. This list is Brian Thomas Jr., Xavier Legette, Ladd McConkey, Keon Coleman, and Brock Bowers. All five
you'd expect
led their entire team in targets and receptions.
Which is crazy. I mean, you would expect to see Marvin Harrison Jr. or Neighbors, those kind of guys on the list, right? And Neighbors didn't have a bad game by any means. But, yeah, I mean, Brock Bowers is kind of crazy on that one, too, with 2 established veterans there with Adams and Jacoby Myers, and also Michael Mayer, also, another tight end who's been there already, who's good in his own right. So that's pretty crazy. It's really crazy. Brian Thomas Jr. obviously looked electric. I mean, Christian Kirk struggled in that game. Brian Thomas Jr. exceeded expectations. So, I mean, sky's the limit for him. We've liked him, the entire rookie scouting process. So, it's no surprise, I think, to us that he's succeeding there in wide receiver 1 quickly in that offense. So, the one that's much more surprising to me was Xavier Legette. You and I were talking about this a little bit before. I was like, is this actually true? Because this one didn't I watched the games and I didn't dig into Carolina's game alone yet, but
this would bad for your mental health.
Yeah, I try to save those for last. Honestly, dig into the players I enjoy and want to watch. But yeah, Legette leading the team in targets was pretty shocking to me. 7 to Deontay's 6. Not a ton more, but more, and he was also more successful than Deontay with those. Granted, I'm sure the targets were all over the place. McConkey looked great. Like we said, Bowers looked really good, but Keon Coleman, that was definitely an interesting one. However, I was looking into the advanced metrics a little bit. Looking into some, that's one of who I really want to dig into, the all 22, but just looking at separation scores and stuff like that, his negative route percentage was pretty high compared to the rest of the team. And I think I might be a little bit more interested in Khalil Shakur, who's playing a lot out of the slot in a high-powered offense with Josh Allen, who's going to move around a lot. I think Shakur is going to get a lot of opportunity to kind of, play out of structure and do some really cool things there. He had a really, really good yards per route run. He's had one, on a low route participation, but he's had one his entire career. So I'm kind of interested in Shakur. I think he scored a touchdown in this one too, if I'm not mistaken. So
correct.
Yeah, I'm definitely interested in Khalil Shakur a little bit more, short term, I guess, than Keon, but also just at cost. I think it's a pretty easy, or not a pretty easy, but it's an easier way to get into this offense than going the Coleman route or the Dalton Kincaid route, who one catch for 23 yards. And I think there was a play called back for him as well, but not encouraging for the Kincaid fans out there. I wouldn't say that that's going to, be a trend going forward. I definitely want to see that going into week 2, 3 and see how he bounces back from that. But if you see a couple games like that, we're going to be pretty concerned, I think, about that profile, especially with nobody else in that offense really outside of Coleman and Shakur. He should be demanding targets. We're going to talk a Bryce Young buy window. I mean, this buy window has been open for this entire offseason, and it's, I guess, what opened as wide as the window
wide
can
open
open.
now.
As wide as the window can open. You can't open it any wider than this. So if you want to get in on Bryce, shout out AJ hitting us on the YouTube channel. Yeah, man, go for it. You could probably snag him for maybe less than a first at this point, and there's still room for him to bounce back. Again, it's week 1. We don't want to get over our skis on this, right? We don't want to be like, all right, it's over. nothing's going to work for this Carolina offense. So, yeah, we do need to apply some patience, but it's very, very concerning for sure.
Yeah. Someone who recently acquired Bryce Young, I have all the faith in the world in him. So
I love it.
I have to say that.
You have to.
Yeah.
I'm legally obligated. Yeah.
Legally obligated. So for my mentals. All right. So the meat and potatoes. Week one, Shmeek one. What narratives are unfolding we just aren't buying? And I think this is a good way to like kind of just hit off the first week and kind of continue what we've been talking about. Overreact, underreact, and all that stuff, and how we feel about this. So the first one, Mixon bell cow. That's crazy. 30 attempts in week one, and Dameon Pierce with just 3 attempts,
and nobody else with any attempts that were logged in the fantasy points data.
Didn't matter. Yeah,
it didn't matter. So I find it hard to believe that this is not so much that they want to change this formula, but that it's sustainable. Like Mixon's always been a workhorse, no doubt about it. He's always been able to take a ton of carries. But as these guys get older, it's just harder and harder for this. Like 30 carries is unsustainable for anybody, right? Like it's going to come down. It's going to come down. And on average, it'll probably be closer to like 15 to 20 or something like that. But still, that seems like a lot it just seems like a really heavy load to put on one guy in this day and age who's, 28 years old and have nobody really behind him, like to trust. And even for us, like as like fantasy managers, who can we roster and be like, all right, if he, other than Dameon Pierce, I guess Dameon Pierce is the guy, but if Mixon goes down, who is the guy to own or to roster here, right? Like, it's just one of those situations it's tough for me to see that it's sustainable, but I don't see what else they're going to do. So I guess I'm not buying it, but it just is what it is. So I guess I have to buy it. Like, what do you think about this?
I mean, there's no reason for them not to do so. I mean, 30 is crazy. You already said it.
For sure.
Like, even 20 is a lot. But I mean, if I was them, I invested in a second contract running back. I'm going to give him 20 carries until he can't carry it anymore. So, yeah, I mean, and I saw something from Mina Kimes. She talked about loaded boxes compared to last year and this year because CJ Stroud was a rookie, right? So early on, they're seeing a lot of loaded boxes. Let's see if this guy could throw. Let's see if he could pass. And now that they got a whole year of seeing, hey, well, CJ Stroud's pretty good, those boxes lightened up. And I mean, that's nothing but good news for someone like Joe Mixon. And if he goes down, whoever's behind him. So it's just one of those offenses that like you want a part of. So
is he worked himself back into first round pick territory if you're a seller out there, or even if you're a buyer? Like, are you contending this guy? I mean, he's 30 carries, like he's bound to get a touchdown every other week at least, just with this offense. So is that worth it to you?
That's probably the price.
That is what I'm selling for. And I don't think you should sell for less than a first.
No.
Especially off of this kind of performance. That's where I'd be heading towards. I wouldn't want to buy it though. I just wouldn't. I think I'd try to figure. I just for me, I'd figure out some other way and bet that, like, we've seen Mixon do this before, not this specifically, but like he had a 50-point week last year that really buoyed his overall fantasy production, and he also had some decent weeks, but he was like a touchdown merchant and really not super efficient, right? I don't know.
It's hard to believe that things have changed. That he got better all of a sudden. It's just, I don't know. We'll see.
So for me to buy into those kind of players at this stage of their career, I guess what I'm saying is, like, I would maybe bet that I can get a cheaper back that would give me on average similar production. I probably wouldn't get the 50-point game, which obviously you want the upside, but his 50-point game is coming one time. Like, he may get these 30 carries one time and it may all fall to pieces after. Like, you know what I mean? It's a dicey one. So that one I'm just not sure I believe in, and I'm not sure I want to buy into, but it does seem reasonable that it continues on like we saw at a similar rate.
All right. It's Kyron's team, and Blake Corum will have to redshirt season. 90.5% snap percentage. Set second to JT. 18 attempts, 3 targets, and Corum, no touches.
Corum, no touches was a shocker.
Mm-hmm. What they get? Like Philip Rivers Ronnie Rivers.
Yeah, they got Philip Rivers back there.
Phillip.
That would be a sight to see. Ronnie Rivers, yeah.
He's an educational piece about undrafted free agents and the leash they get. But yeah, so sure, yeah, it is Kyron's team for now. I kind of assumed it would be, but I still think for now is like in bold letters.
Man, did we? I wonder if we got a little over our heads with the camp hype coming out from Sean McVay, like believing everything he says. You know what I mean? Whether it's Jordan Whittington or it was Puka or it's Corum, like he's doing great, and then Corum literally no touches. Like no touches is kind of crazy compared to like what we were hearing coming out of camp, right?
Yeah.
So I don't know if we got tricked a little bit here. We're probably going to see more Corum down the road. Like I doubt we're going to see no touches from Corum all year long. So I do think it is Kyron's team, but I also think that this may be like a buy window for Blake Corum, right? Because I don't think Corum is just like a bust either. Like, I mean, it's interesting because you usually don't see these guys like basically get healthy scratched, like for no reason if they are decent, but McVay does do the workhorse thing. You know what I mean? Like when he has a guy, he plays the guy. So Kyron's the guy, and I kind of believe it.
Yeah, it is worth pointing out that Kyron, even with all the opportunities, did not look the greatest. But we'll see.
That's true. It's true.
From my own trained eye, it just didn't look.
Even by the numbers, he wasn't the most efficient either. He wasn't, especially through the air. He wasn't amazing, but yeah, he wasn't super efficient on the ground either.
All right, Aaron Jones resurgent at 29 years old, 6 missed tackles forced, 74.5 yards. Percent of his yards were after contact. Oh man, I would have liked to see. I can't even recall what that looked like. I'm wondering if they're just blocking really well. Because Aaron Jones, I've never once believed in him.
I mean,
maybe that's my problem.
He's proved you wrong then many times. He's definitely been a good back, like for sure. I mean, this is just one of those where another one where the age is a problem for me. So I do actually have at least 2 shares of him, but I've always been trying to get out of him. And honestly, this would be another opportunity, I think, to get out of him. Granted, like that's really efficient. Like 6 missed tackles for 74.5% yards after contact per attempt. He had I think he was above 5 yards per carry. Like he was damn good in this game, like really good. And they're going to want to be pretty balanced. You know, he's going to get a lot of run. Ty Chandler was, from what I saw, awful. He carved out some production like in the game eventually, but it was not pretty. It was pretty ugly. So Aaron Jones is the workhorse there, but at 29, it's just a fragile profile to me. We've seen him get injured each and every year, and I'm not saying he's injury prone, but a 29-year-old running back gets injured and the value tanks, and now you have no production. So if you can move off of this profile, I would definitely like to do so. Second plus, something like that. Maybe you can go attack like a Tyjae Spears who underperformed and add a second or something like that to move off of an old aging running back. Those are the kind of things that I'm trying to do with these guys if I can in these moments. So I guess for me, I don't believe in the Aaron Jones resurgence at 29. I think that who they play. I actually meant to write this down because it was also
Giants,
the Giants. Yeah. He feasted against a really poor team too. So week one stuff. Yeah, shout out Jake. Week 1 stuff.
Saquon Barkley, RB1, and will own goal line attempts, and Jalen Hurts will suffer. For now, yeah. I mean, I have a hard time thinking Barkley is going to be this good full season. It's just another one of those things: running backs, age, and all the other stuff, and then mobile quarterback. But I mean, you got a lot of fucking points from him this week.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, Packers, their run D hasn't not always had, like even last year wasn't very good. So I do think that played a part in it. But I mean, adding Barkley, who is an immense talent to this offense with this offensive line. Yeah, I mean, I don't know if I fully buy into this. Maybe the Hurts will suffer part I'm not fully bought into, but him eating into some goal line attempts and maybe not like the whole narrative this offseason was two things. He's not going to get targets, right? And Hurts is going to eat into his goal line attempts, right? The goal line touchdown attempts, the red zone attempts, the green zone attempts, those kind of things. And week 1, neither of those things were true.
Correct.
Right? We saw even a long pass to the end zone, touchdown, 2 touchdowns for Barkley. He was getting, the goal line touches. So, yeah, I'm inclined to believe that maybe they want to protect Hurts a little bit more and use this back that they paid a ton of money to. Kind of like you were saying about Mixon. Let's get Barkley involved. And maybe we were a little bit wrong on this one with Barkley. He's not too old, right? He's one of those where we may have been like, yeah, let's get out of this aging running back, whatever. And he's like, he still has a year or so in him, a year or two in him where he can really, really succeed. I don't know if there's anything actionable in Dynasty here, but I kind of believe this one.
Yeah, I could see him having another couple of weeks like this off and on. I'd be interested in actually snagging him up if he has a down week. Or maybe
if possible,
2 in a row or something like that. But
yeah, I think he's going to be kind of expensive, and I totally could see him finishing as like a top 3-4 running back in fantasy this year.
I agree. This is good. Derek Carr and the Saints are for real. Man,
are
it's
they?
hard to buy into. It's hard to buy into. Was it? They got Kubiak there. Dennis Allen. Dennis Allen is a piece of shit. I'll never root for that guy. But yeah, I mean, Derek Carr. Good thing Jake's not here because we probably won't even talk about this because he hates Carr. But I mean, Derek Carr is a decent quarterback. He's a decent quarterback.
He's as decent as they get.
I mean, he's fine. He's absolutely fine. He's definitely a top 25 quarterback. But man, they just put it on Carolina. They put it on Carolina.
He's definitely a top 32 quarterback.
He was an MVP candidate at one point in time. Like 2016, they went to the playoffs. He broke his leg. I think the week before the playoffs or something like that. So
yeah.
I mean, he's capable of that. I mean, he's been playing with the Raiders for a long time. Those guys suck. Like they haven't had good offensive coordinator, defensive coordinator, head coach, management for as long as I can remember. Like it's terrible. So at least the Saints organization is a little bit better. Again, I don't really like that head coach very much, but do I think that they're for real? I don't know. They get to play Dallas next week. I guess we'll find out.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. I think we need to see this one more week. I'm not willing to buy into this. I want to sell Derek Carr off of this instantly if you can.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely doing that. Alvin Kamara, interestingly enough, was more efficient in this game than we've seen him in a long time. But I think we need to rein ourselves back in if we're talking about, that team played the Giants. Well, this team played the Panthers, and they absolutely dominated them. One thing, though, I do think is interesting to keep an eye on, and again, I'm not – you actually are highlighting it on the sheet right now. I didn't even notice that. But yeah, Chris Olave, man, 2 catches, 11 yards when, we see Shaheed go off, Foster Moreau go off. Kamara obviously is always going to get targets from Derek Carr. Juwan Johnson caught a touchdown. Yeah. And Chris Olave just not really doing much. So yeah, I don't know how to feel about that one. That's another one I think I need to go and watch the All 22 and really, really see what was going on there. Maybe it's like a Drake London thing, but it feels like it's not because Derek Carr had a fine game. You know what I mean? Drake London, I think, was more about the quarterback play. So I don't know. That's a tough one to read there. That's a really tough one to read. It may be a buy opportunity for Olave. You may need to wait another week to see if he has 2 weeks like that, it's going to be kind of like what we were talking about earlier with, I forgot who, but if we see with Marv, if we see Marv. 2 weeks of Olave sucking, like it's going to be a buy window like you've never seen before. So that's something to keep an eye on for sure. I'm not sure I buy that part of it, but I don't think the Saints are for real. I just don't.
No. And I think that Olave is better than all those other receivers by far on that team. So I don't know if we'll get a chance to see it next week. Again, I mean, I'm a homer, but the Dallas Cowboys defense, secondary, very good. So
this is an indictment on Derek Carr, right? He likes Rashid Shaheed way more than he likes Chris Olave, and he always has.
He does, yeah. I mean, you see those little clips. You see those little clips where he's like, Rashid, run. Like they definitely have more chemistry. It seems like so.
That's so weird, bro. Like I don't know. That just seems wrong. But all right, we'll continue on.
Man, you always help your boys feed. Right? If they're hungry, you're gonna feed them, right? So if Rashid's his boy, I get it.
Yeah,
Maybe Olave should have hung out with Tarek a little bit more.
I can never get with that number 22 on his back as a wide receiver. I'm like, who is that? Oh, Rashid Shaheed. Okay, that's who that is. Anyway,
NFL changing the numbers. I maybe I sound like an old man, but like I don't like it. I like the way it was.
I remember talking about this initially when it happened with you, and you're like, "Yeah, I don't like that at all."
No, I mean, like, what the hell is that? Running back wearing one? No. All right, Kirk Cousins finished. I don't think he's finished. I think he's just not healthy. So Kirk Cousins, watching some of the all 22, like you could tell he really wasn't able to like plant hard on his back right leg to get a lot of zip on the ball. I think it's just going to take time. That's all. What I don't know is if he's going to have enough time because Michael Penix is right there. I don't know. Is it the Atlanta offense? Is it Kirk Cousins? He had a terrible, terrible game, but like Kirk Cousins doesn't all of a sudden like suck. He's been good for a long time. I just don't think he's healthy. I don't think he's ready to play.
Yeah, I mean, he certainly doesn't look like it. He needs to get on some of that ivermectin or something and get on that Aaron Rodgers plan, bro.
Hey, man, you're gonna get censored, bro.
So ayahuasca, something, bro. Get that man on
some
alternative medicine. All right. No, I mean, Aaron Rodgers, like he figured out how to not throw off that foot. He just launches that foot up when he throws, and he's figured it out. But Kirk Cousins just does not seem to be able to move, dude. That is one part of it. Like he was right now, like, and it might be, like you said, recovering, not confident in his leg, whatever it is. But I mean, he's an absolute statue in there, like just cement, running in cement. The other part of that was that TJ Watt was an absolute menace. Like it was crazy. Joe coming in here, hard to be a quarterback when TJ Watt knows your snap count. They were eating them alive. So the offensive line looked terrible. And yeah, so like, do I think Kirk Cousins is finished? No, I'd kind of agree with you. A lot more chance that we see Michael Penix sooner, even if it's just like, hey, let's let Kirk get right. You know what I mean? Kind of thing. Like maybe we see that. But I did watch all the snaps of Drake London, and he looked pretty good to me. Both him and JSN kind of suffered from the same affliction where I'm like, there's certain plays where you want to see them applying burst, and it almost seems like they're like just kind of going through the motion. And I don't know necessarily what that's all about. Most of the time that's not the case. And most of the time he's breaking off of coverage, even guys who are on him, he's able to still get himself open. There are times specifically for Drake London where I see him getting pressed a lot. Like they press him a ton and he's able to work off of it most of the time, but there are times where he can't get off the coverage. So like you see flashes of Mike Evans and then you're like, you got some growing up to do still. So all that said, I don't think it's a London problem at all. I really don't. I think this is an offensive line and QB problem there, and I don't know when that's going to get fixed. But also a TJ Watt problem. So as long as you're not going against him every week, things should get a little better, hopefully.
Yeah. That TJ guy's pretty good at football.
Dude, he's the best in the business, dude. Like, and you see him after every play, he looks like a bull. Like he's like huffing and like snorting, and he's like shaking. Like you're like, dude, this guy's an animal right now. Like he's not a human. He has shifted gears. He's flipped the switch. He's a whole different beast on there, and it's impressive. It's very impressive what he's able to do.
All right, this one's good. Isaiah Likely will outscore Mark Andrews rest of the season. Zero chance.
We talked about this a little, not talked about this specifically a little bit, but like I was saying how I think Mark Andrews is going to bounce back, week 2 here going forward in general. And I can't see that usage continuing for Isaiah Likely. I do think that he's going to be, I think Likely will be a flex worthy piece every week for sure. I don't know if I was saying it at the beginning of the show or before the show, but I do think that, he's playing that wide receiver 2-3 role or whatever, depending on how you view Mark Andrews. But yeah, Joe is right. If that comes true, I am going to melt. Absolutely correct. So we cannot have that happen. But I'm definitely coming around on Likely, being a great player. I'm never going to come around on Likely being a better player than Mark Andrews. And this is also one of those, I hope that it's like the fantasy life thing I'm talking about at the beginning of this, like not getting in the way of like, oh yeah, my evaluation is right. Like Mark Andrews is by far the better player than Isaiah Likely, but is Isaiah Likely just going to score more fantasy points because he's just this chess piece that gets thrown around, and you have Lamar Jackson who, just does wizardry and can wait till these guys get open. And there's, it could happen. You know what I mean? It totally could happen. I just don't buy it. I just don't buy it. And I think Mark Andrews is definitely going to bounce back. And I think we should be buying Mark Andrews.
I think so too. This one's good. J.K. Dobbins, 13.5 yards per carry will sustain as LA Chargers RB1. Now, 13 and a half yards per carry, that's not going to sustain, obviously.
That is ridiculous. He led by like 7 yards per carry or something like that. It was ridiculous.
But is he the LA Chargers RB1? Yeah. I have Dobbins all over the place just because I was never going to sell him for what I thought. I'd rather have had him die on my roster than get like a third for him and stuff like that. So I'm pretty stoked about that. I didn't start him anywhere, but it doesn't really matter. Yeah, it seems like right now he is definitely the Chargers RB1, and it shouldn't change unless he gets hurt. Gus Edwards, he got chances, but he just didn't look anything like what Dobbins did. Dobbins definitely didn't really have a full tank when that one long run, right? He had like run for like 40 some yards, 50 some yards, and then he just kind of had to slow down and let himself be tackled because he didn't quite have it anymore. That wasn't like J.K. Dobbins the first year coming out of college. Like he would have housed that thing. So he's definitely slower, but he still looked good. He still looked really good.
It's like one of those, one of those people who like never fills up their gas tank all the way. Like it's like they have 3 of those people on the same team. And I don't even know, like I know Vidal has like some speed, but I don't know if he has long speed like that. Like I don't think any of them have long speed, and it's really Dobbins. Just the injuries at this point have really stacked up, and that's okay. I kind of agree with you here that like he's the running back 1 on this team.
Yeah.
That yards per carry is not going to sustain. He probably won't even have too many long carries again like that. If I had to guess, you know what I mean? That'll probably be a lot more 5 to 15 yard carries at most than it is going to be like 60-yard runs. Especially, I was surprised to see him have enough burst to even do that, to be honest, coming off of the injuries he's coming off of, which is really impressive. But all it's going to take is one injury and the show's over. We're done. You're not getting nothing for this guy. So like, are you willing to sell for a second right now?
Depends on the status of my team. If I'm contending, I'm rolling him out there. But if I have a middling team, then I think I'm trying to get out of him after this week.
I think I'm willing to do it no matter what. Unless I'm like that barren at the running back position where he's like, he's like my backup running back 1. If my running back 1 goes down, my Jahmyr Gibbs goes down, and J.K. Dobbins is like the only guy left. Like, and that's my contending team, and I have like the other, rookie running backs in the waiting or whatever. Then yeah, maybe I'll roll the dice on that, and the rest of my teams, I know I'm taking this to the end. Other than that, like I think I'm just gonna try to get my second round pick. I'll miss out on some of these good games, and if he gets injured, then I at least made the return on investment more than what I would have ever got, a month ago. Like you were maybe getting a 4th for him, a 3rd for him, at best. So I just don't think you're ever going to get more than that. So for me, I just think you got to bite the bullet and get off of him. I know this is your boy, and I think this is one of those times where you got to like tell yourself, and for some of these teams, I think you need to go and really look yourself in the mirror and be like, yeah, I need to get off of Dobbins right now. And I think you have an opportunity to.
Yeah. I was just thinking that because I think it's DU2 where I need I really need to get off the pot there. I think I might have Dobbins there. I think I really need to probably move off there. Just one more thing. This is like in general with your dynasty rosters. Like I find myself doing this, like just because you have a piece or two that like you haven't really been able to use the year before, and like you're middling, but like, yo, shoot, I got Dobbins back now. It's like that doesn't make you a contender, right? I mean, if you were contending before, this helps you be a contender. But that one extra piece that like was just sitting on your IR last year, now all of a sudden you're not like, okay, well, I got Dobbins now. Like I'm good to go. I just added a running back. Like, don't do that to yourself. Like, I know I will, for probably too long, but that's just one of those things. It's like it's not. You didn't just win a lottery with a guy coming back and like looking good week 1. So I
Yeah.
guess that's important
So
to say.
no, that's a great. I just laughed because AJ said I think Billy just hates Dobbins in the YouTube comments. Hilarious. Yeah, I mean, I actually don't. I was actually kind of a Dobbins truther, and I bought into Dobbins off the first injury, and so I kind of like Dobbins coming off of that first injury, but having two of them, it's really hard to keep buying in, you know. And so once you get an exit point, an off ramp off of that kind of profile, like I tend to want to take it. Like it's not often that these guys are going to bounce back and then have a long career of sustained success like we're seeing in this one game. So week 1, Shmeek 1, I don't buy it. But what I will say to Uriah's point in terms of like those rosters that all of a sudden, you know, they're frauds essentially, but they look like they're contending all of a sudden because of
Yes,
these
that's a good way
players
to
you
put it.
have in there. Like I have my DU4 roster has Mixon on there, who I don't think is going to sustain that success. And I had some injuries. So like in my lineup is like Hunter Henry, James Conner, J.K. Dobbins, but like all these players did fairly well. So this team gives off like, oh, maybe it scored some points. Like maybe it's over. It's definitely, you know, overperforming. And I know that. So these are like Mixon and Dobbins are players I want to get off of. I already have a couple first round picks. If I can accumulate more and really, you know, push that snowball down the hill using those pieces, then you can come back more quickly. That's how you do that kind of the productive struggle thing, that year 1 or whatever. You use these pieces, these ancillary pieces who look like they're going to really offer, you know, ultra contender windows. And you try to pass those off to other people, even though they're fragile assets, and hope that they kind of blow up in their face. And even if they don't, they'll probably give them some success, but they'll really give you great return on investment. So if I can flip Mixon for a first or Dobbins plus a little something for a second, you know, and another pick a second and a third, boom. Now I'm really looking forward to next year, and I'm going to, I think, have players that have a lot more sustainability on my roster, probably a lot more talent at this level, all that good stuff. So that's kind of the idea.
All right. We already talked about Marvin Harrison. Is there anything else you want to add?
No. We can move on from Marv.
All right. Let's talk about some Justin Fields. Justin Fields will remain the starter all season. Look. Yeah. I mean, if they go out and win again next week, then yeah, why not? They're not beholden to Russell Wilson for anything.
That was 18 points off of Chris Boswell's foot. Like Justin Fields did nothing but not lose that game. Let's be honest.
Well, I mean, Russell Wilson could do the exact same thing. Like, I don't know.
So then the team is lying to us, because like up to this point, from what we've seen and what they've been saying, they believe that Russell Wilson gives them a better chance to win. And all of a sudden he's got like some like calf tightness and like he's out for 2 weeks. Like I could buy 1 week. Like, all right, you just don't want to suffer like an injury. Okay, whatever. Week 1, we can get through it. I don't know. Something's fishy about it. I don't buy that Justin Fields is going to remain the starter all season, because I don't buy that he's good. And there was nothing really encouraging, in my opinion, about week 1 to say, oh yeah, we need to keep starting this guy. His fantasy production wasn't even there for like us. So I don't know why we're like super stoked about, you know, Justin Fields, but whatever. Yeah, but here you go. That's Steelers football for you. Don't lose it. Says Joe. I mean, that is definitely what they're doing. Najee Harris with 20 carries for like, you know, 1.2 yards per carry. I don't think it was that bad. I think it was a little bit better than that. But yeah, it was interesting. It was interesting to see. I really just don't buy that Justin Fields is going to remain the starter all season. I think at some point they're going to have to get Russ in there. I don't know. How do you feel about that? You think Justin Fields is it? You think this is it?
I just think that I mean, you and I will probably always disagree on this. Like, you've always liked Russell more than I have. I've always liked Fields more than you have. But I trust Mike Tomlin, and I trust Steelers
fair enough.
organization. I say it all the time on here. There's really bad organizations, and you could just see it year after year after year. Carolina sucks forever. Chargers are going to ruin Herbert's career because they're trash. Like, but I trust that if Tomlin is rolling Fields out there, like it's probably for a reason. Like they're not gaslighting us for like no good reason, unless Russell really is hurt, and I just don't think he is that hurt. I don't think he's that hurt.
Then I think they would tell, like, to your point, I think Mike Tomlin would come out and tell us Justin Fields is a starting quarterback because he gives us the best chance to win, and that's not what they're doing. So
That's true.
I think Russ is injured, and I think that he's going to see the field again or not again. I think he's going to see the field at some point this season. And I think we should want that. I don't think Justin Fields is giving the pass catchers here the best chance to succeed. So, all right. I mean, that's fair to disagree because he is the starter right now. Like, Jesus,
Yeah.
that is a mess in my opinion. I don't think it's going to be a very fun season for Steelers fans personally, but sorry, Joe.
Somehow they're still going to have a winning season. That's going to happen.
They always do.
They always do. Yeah. Also, like, they haven't done much more. Like, maybe Tomlin should be on a hot seat. But that's a different discussion.
Yeah. I've heard that talked about for quite some time, actually. Yeah.
All right. Tony Pollard would dominate touches, and Spears is purely a backup. He is until he isn't. Looks pretty good. I think there's a good buy low window on Spears. Because I still think that he will get more opportunities and do better than he did last week.
Yeah. I mean, Tony Pollard looked good. Like, Tony Pollard looked like he had some burst.
Decisiveness.
Decisiveness, and they clearly want to give him the bulk of the touches. Like, that's obviously the plan. But as the season rolls on, I do think that, it becomes more balanced out, injuries, all that stuff. I really don't think Pollard is a workhorse, a typical workhorse. So I do think that he needs to share a bit to be at his best. And so I kind of agree with you. I think this might be a buy low window on Spears. I actually got saved last week. It's not saved. I think it would have still been an okay trade, but I tried to move. I tried to move Joe Mixon for Spears in a second, like something kind of like that or whatever before the season started. And they were like, I like Joe Mixon, but I don't know if I would do it straight up for Spears or whatever. You know what I mean? And so seeing the contrast in performances from Mixon versus Spears, I think would change somebody's mind quite significantly on both those players, but specifically Spears, that it might really take a hit in terms of how they perceive their value. And maybe you can go attack that again in a different way, right? Like, that's how I'm thinking about this. I'm like, let me let this settle a little bit and go maybe send a different offer for Spears, not with Mixon included, you know what I mean? And try to get Spears. And then I can still, if he's interested in Mixon, I can maybe swing a whole nother deal there, but got Spears at a value. But in general, because I'm thinking of that, I agree with you. I think Spears is a player to target based on what we've seen here. I don't really believe that Pollard will dominate touches per se all year long.
Probably not all year. Nope. Jackson.
Sorry, real quick. AJ, coach said they want more Spears involvement. Shout out from our Discord folks. Love y'all. Always coming in with the heat. I didn't see that, but I absolutely believe it. So that's encouragement right there.
Yeah. And you're absolutely right. We talked about this. I think the year Zeke left to go to New England and what we could expect from Tony Pollard, even though he did break his leg the last game he played. He's just a better complementary player.
Absolutely.
I think we both believe that. All right. So Jackson Smith-Njigba still sucks. I mean, look.
Let's hear your take on it. I want to hear your take.
I think he's a really good player. I think we know he's a really good player. But man, I think until something significant happens with Tyler Lockett, like I don't actually see him at this point supplanting him. Last year, I would not have said that. Like I would have said for sure he's going to take over that job, but I don't see it. I don't see it. It's not looking good.
Yeah. Oh man, it's tough because I do think there's some truth to what you're saying. Like Tyler Lockett is still somewhat of an impediment to JSN because he can get open and he's still good. And so when you put him out there in 3 wide receiver sets, Geno Smith is still going to find him because the guy's on the third defender, or the third coverage guy, or whatever it is. So he's like eating it up. But that said, the usage is so much better this year for JSN. Like I was able to watch all of his snaps as well, and I was pretty encouraged by what I saw there. I do think there was like one play in particular where Tyler Lockett caught a pass. They were both doing kind of like a comeback route where they were throttling down and coming back to the quarterback, and the throttle down had just so much more crispness and burst coming from Tyler Lockett than it did from JSN. And that's not on every play. Like a lot of plays, you see the same, the same kind of effort and energy through the route for each player, but there's just some of those differences where you see that. And I don't know if that's just youth, if that's knowing where the play is going, those kind of things. I'm not sure exactly what it is, but for the most part, I thought that it was more offensive line and quarterback play than it was, and I think being comfortable with Tyler Lockett helps, but the usage is great. He's like 86%. I think we saw the numbers posted in the Discord, but it was like on 2 wide receiver sets or 11 personnel, he was like on the field 86% of the time. He was in the slot a absolute ton. I mean, he's where you want him to be. He's on the field a lot more. I do think that we're going to see better days ahead for this whole team, but for JSN included. So I'm trying not to be too discouraged. I am trying to kind of keep this boat afloat, but I definitely understand the concern, especially compared to maybe our next one here.
And here we go. Finally, he broke out. Jameson Williams, JMO. Really good game, really good output from him there in Detroit. Do you think the true X receiver for Detroit? No, he's not an X receiver. But I mean, it looked good, but I can't buy into it. I was selling the shit out of him if I had him right now.
Yeah.
Or do you think it's finally happening?
Absolutely not. No,
Absolutely
I don't quite believe in the player in general. But this is one that I'm really, really interested to go dig back into the all 22 on, because I do want to see, his route all game. It was 5 catches for him. So not like super, I don't think it was like a super, heavy volume game. Like if we're talking about like, is he supplanting, Amon-Ra St. Brown or whatever, you've seen those, like that nonsense going around. Like, I don't think that's anything we have to worry about. So yeah, but I am just interested in seeing if he's turned it around as a player, because I haven't quite believed in him as a route runner, all those things. But yeah, he was pretty special in this game. 32% target share in this game, 9 targets, 5 catches. I mean, that's impressive for sure. It was a hell of a performance, and you can't really deny that. But personally, yeah, I don't buy it, and I'd be selling off of this one. Damn, yeah, first read target percentage 42.9%. I don't know how that's sustainable with these players.
Sam Laporta exists, but the Coach Speak Index account did highlight 2 players, Jameson Williams and Tank Bigsby. Both those guys was a huge drumbeat from the coaches all throughout the offseason. And we actually saw it come to fruition week 1. So Jameson Williams looked pretty good. Tank Bigsby looked pretty good. So
yeah, well,
just something to think about, I guess. Maybe they weren't bullshitting.
That's fair. I mean, and I will say the true X, I mean, he is there. He's playing 75% out wide. So, I mean, in terms of like the role he's playing, or at least week 1, yeah, I mean, he is doing that. So it's interesting.
All right. Also, just it's been in the back of my mind. Konami Vidal was healthy scratch inactive. Dylan Lobby was inactive, healthy scratch. Those 2 rookie running backs, I thought was both surprising. So hopefully we get to see them active next week.
Absolutely.
All right. Trades and non-trades?
Trades and non-trades.
Let's get out of here. So trades and non-trades. Can't get a first for Addison. This is kind of sad because Jordan Addison is, I think, a guy that I feel like we both wanted to be successful. I think we both thought he was a pretty good player. Analytics liked him. Film guys liked him. Just not. He's not doing it, and I don't think you get a first for him now. There's no way.
Yeah, it's just like I really thought that his value is still in that range, and I just think at this point you got to hold this kind of profile if you have him. Like I do think that this kind of profile outside of him just being a terrible person off the field is going to bounce back. Like on the field, he seems to have the no. I mean, he was getting targeted in this game until he went out. Plenty. He was getting targeted in this game plenty until he went out with the injury. He seems to be, he's a good route runner. He seems to be able to demand targets. So yeah, like he's not our favorite player. He's, one of the smaller guys, never going to be a wide receiver one, all that good stuff, but he can be a really successful wide receiver for fantasy. And I think his value is getting a little too low. So honestly, I might even be to the point where I'm willing to acquire some shares. Yeah, I do think I might be at that point. Because if we're no longer in first round range, I mean, the risk is mitigated. It's kind of priced in. If I can get, like on this team, it's JJ, it's Hawkinson, and then we're going to have Jordan Addison, right? Like that's what it's going to be for the pass catchers. And it's a good offense. And obviously, Sam Darnold is keeping their heads above water, but I think he could be good. I think he can be good with Sam Darnold. I think he can be good with
JJ.
With JJ. I don't know why I can't. JJ McCarthy. So yeah, it's just I guess I don't hate this profile as much, and I'm like shocked that other people don't want in on him at the kind of dip. Like I do think that he's proven that he's a good enough player to start when he's healthy.
How many targets did he get?
I think he was at like 3 for 3 or 3 for 4 in that game. Yeah, I don't have it up in front of me, but he had caught like almost all his targets for like, I don't know, it was like 30 yards or something like that.
All right. Next one, Aaron Jones plus Rashee Rice for Hawkinson and Knicks. And to you too. Also, yeah, shout out to all the rookie quarterbacks. They all suck this week. Bad. So yeah, Aaron Jones and Rashee Rice for Hawkinson and Knicks. I mean, right now, if I'm contending, Aaron Jones and Rice seems like the smash, for me on this right now. I'm really concerned about Knicks, and then Hawkinson you still have to wait on. So I think it's a good trade. I could assume that these two teams are probably going in different directions, but yeah, I like Aaron Jones and Rice here.
Yeah. Yeah, this was a good trade. This was a really interesting trade. It's hard when you're trading one of those quarterbacks away.
Yes.
Oh man, and you like Hawkinson's a great player, so it's like I think I'd go with the Hawkinson side personally. Man, it's just Aaron Jones makes this trade really tough, and if Knicks works out, it's really dependent on Knicks, I guess, right? If you don't believe in Knicks, man, I hate that because it's like Rice feels like the best player in this deal, right?
Isn't that weird?
But yeah, I don't like living in that. I don't like living in that universe where Rice is the best player in this deal. Yeah. I'll stick on the Hawkinson side, but it's so damn close. Like I agree with you. Like the Rice and Aaron Jones side is more appealing, and I feel like it's like my brain is telling me to do that, and that would be the right thing, but my heart's telling me to do the other. So, yeah, I'm stuck in between on that one.
Just worried about getting stuck with Knicks. So.
Yeah, that's definitely the holdup here for me too.
Which is only week 1, but like we'll see. All right, George Pickens.
I'm just thinking through it. If you could move Aaron Jones off of this for like a second, and it's like Rice in a second, I guess like I'd like that better because just more fluid. But yeah, if you're competing, that's a great offer. Oh man, I hate that trade. Okay,
it's hard to dissect. George Pickens and Devon Achane for Gibbs in a second. So for me, this is Achane, Gibbs, and then Pickens second. I'm going to take Achane and Pickens.
Yeah, Pickens plus Achane for Gibbs in the second. I'm taking Gibbs in the second here. I don't think Pickens is enough to cover the gap for me. I just think there's a lot more sustainability with Gibbs than Achane. So that's like the trade for me, right? It's like I'll take Gibbs over A-Chain, and I think the gap between those two is enough to cover the gap between the second and Pickens.
Mm.
I like Gibbs that much more. I guess that's where I'm at. But I'll tell you what, we didn't talk about A-Chain, and he was kind of in a bell cow role as well.
He
Granted,
was.
it was 10 carries, but he also saw 7 targets, so that's 17 touches.
That's what I'm saying.
And Raheem Mostert was a bum in that game. So, and he got a goal, and not to go unnoticed, goal line touchdown, I believe, for HN. So, yeah, maybe I'm missing the mark here.
I feel like I might have H-Chan over Gibbs in my head, considering.
Well, if you
of,
have Gibbs, you can make some bones on that if you really want to.
I mean, Gibbs has got Montgomery there, who's still a good running back. I know H-Chan's not there all by himself, Jeff Wilson and Mossert, the rookie Jalen Wright's coming up, but like what we saw from H-Chan, like damn, they just want to use the guy. It's rough. Yeah, I mean, it's okay that we disagree, but I still, I think that the Pickens H-Chan side for me is probably where I'd go with this.
No, I think this is a good trade. It's like, again, these are fine to disagree on. Like both of us, either one of us could be right or wrong on these. And these are close ones where, you can kind of split the difference in any way in your head. Like I try to explain why I feel that way about this. But if you believe that about A-Chan and you have Gibbs, you can really, really tear down if you want, I think, to A-Chan plus with the right managers. Like, I don't think everybody's going to see that performance, like reading the stat line and be super encouraged by 10 carries and like 28 yards or whatever he had, because he was pretty lackluster on the ground. And that's not always going to be the case with him. Like, we know that he can hit home runs. So I think you can do that if you want. And I don't hate that either. Like, with the state of running backs in Dynasty, how fickle, how much their value fluctuates up, in that top 5 to 8 range, like totally can see making that move. And maybe that's what you view this as. Maybe you view Gibbs in a second as a tier down to A-Chan and Pickens. Personally, I'd want a better wide receiver than Pickens or somebody who I like better, but it's close enough. So that's how I feel about it.
What if Russell Wilson was throwing the ball instead of Justin Fields?
I don't think that would make me feel that much better about Pickens. I think I would need
just checking.
No, I think I would need like a really, it's more, I just don't think Pickens is Mike Evans. You know what I mean? Like, I think Pickens is like just a decent player, a boom bust player. I just think he's a really boom bust player. A good player in his own right. I'm not trying to like dog Pickens here. That's not really the point either. But I guess I like Gibbs a lot more, obviously, than you do in comparison to like an H-Chan. The Montgomery workload is definitely crazy, but I think that's just what you're getting. And Gibbs was still super productive even with that. So that's kind of the point for me, is like, is H-Chan doing that I mean, I guess he was kind of doing that with Raheem Mostert last year, but is he doing that exactly with somebody else carrying it like that? I don't know. I think there's a little bit of a talent gap there, and that's what kind of gets me there with Gibbs. And I like having that on my roster a little bit more. Like, I wouldn't feel as comfortable in a hero running back build with H-Chan as I do with Gibbs. And I don't know why that is, because they're probably both very similarly fragile assets, but I do feel like Gibbs' value over time is less likely or less prone to fluctuations, or as great of fluctuations as H-Chan's value is.
It's fair. It's fair.
We got there. It took me about 10 minutes, but we got there.
All right, last one. This one's a lot. Okay, so Chris Olave, Dalton Kincaid, 2 guys we've talked about earlier. You had Jamar Chase, Conklin, Shakur, Michael Mayer, and a 25-second. I mean, this is one where you don't want to like get over your skis because of week 1 performances concerning Olave and Kincaid. But Chase is the best player on that team, on the whole thing. Mayer, second. You'd have to have a lot of faith that Olave and Kincaid bounce back, which I think they will. But I think anytime you take the side with Chase, I'm going to take the side with Chase.
Yeah, I think that I should have been putting these all up. but this one's big enough where I feel like we
on the
got
screen.
to get this up on the screen. But yeah, Olave, Kincaid for Chase, Conklin, Shakir, Mayer plus 25 second. I agree with you here. I said this in the Discord. I think I even said this in the league chat. But I think I said in the Discord as well. I want Chase. I want the best player in this deal. But I also kind of like getting, talking kind of through the narrative stuff today with Shakir. I like Shakir a little bit. Getting that player here and a 25 second, like, yeah, like you're giving up some good stuff. Olave and Kincaid are definitely good, but you're getting back the best of the best and some potential. These aren't players who are just absolute, roster cloggers. Like I don't think Shakir, Mayer, or the second round pick can be considered roster cloggers at all. Conklin can be. The rest of that is pretty solid added on to an elite asset. So I agree with you. I like that asset, that side quite a bit. But that was a big trade, dude, that went down. When I saw that, I was like, whoa, like this is significant. Yeah, so that was pretty cool. Before we get out of here, I did want to look real quick I was looking at the Detroit stuff a little bit more because I was interested, just looking at kind of like the separation numbers. And he had a pretty high rate of negative separation graded routes compared to the others. So I'm just kind of trying to look at, the quality that we're, seeing from him as opposed to the production if it's truly sustainable.
Who's that? Jamo?
Sorry, looking at Jameson Williams. I don't even know if I said that, but yeah, looking at the Detroit wide receiver group. And truthfully, they all, just looking at this, had kind of a bad night in terms of route running. At least per fantasy points, like in their charting, they're grading it, percentage of routes. Essentially, they're grading it like +1 for, so they're doing a percentage of routes graded as a +1, +2, or +3, given how successful or how much separation there was, and then they're giving a negative grade or a negative percentage for the number of routes that were negative separation grades. And so it's actually an interesting way to do it, but yeah, all of them had a pretty significant negative rate, which is not what you typically see from entire wide receiver groups, especially of the like Amon-Ra St. Brown or Sam Laporta. So anyway, I don't think that that's sustainable. Just kind of trying to dig into the numbers a little bit deeper there before we do get out of here with that. But yeah, I thought this was really interesting way to kind of discuss week one. I don't, we're not going to do a recap every week, but honestly, I think that every week, like what I do think we're trying to do is kind of frame things, frame the phases of the season, the weeks of the season in a certain way that we can actually dissect these things. Able to work through them and not kind of talk about them in a stagnant way. I think that this is a good way to keep perspective, right? Talking about, anchoring bias, all those good things, right? Kind of keeping perspective as we work through these things, especially the week 1, week 2, where we think we know everything. Like, oh, well, Mark Andrews sucks. Oh, well, like Keon Coleman is God. And, Aaron Jones back, resurgence. That's it. It's just, there's a lot of things that we can look at, and misevaluate this early on. So we just need to be really careful with that. I think that now is the time where you can kind of sell the uncertainty and not really need to buy much, right? You can also buy some uncertainty, but you can, more often than not right now, is you can sell uncertainty and kind of stand pat with everything else and watch things kind of even out. So that's what we want to do here, but appreciate everybody in the Discord. Just want to say that really appreciate everybody in the Discord. So much energy in there for the games. Like if you're not in the Discord and if you're looking for a place to chat football on Sundays and, with a group of like-minded people and just have some fun, man, like hop in the Discord, if not just to get like the great Dynasty advice all throughout the week and all throughout the offseason, all that good stuff. But yeah, man, it's absolutely jumping in there on Sundays. It's a blast.
It's nonstop. All right. Anything else you want to talk about before we get out of here?
No, that's all, man. Happy to be back here in season with you, dude. Love doing this.
Yes,
I think this is like, are we going on like our 5th year almost? It's like, at least we're year 4 or something like that. So we've been doing this for quite some time. Yeah, man. So it's just, I'm really happy to be here doing this with you. It's where we've taken it. It's been so much fun and we keep taking it to new heights and appreciate everybody again, like the Dans, Tommies, Joes, Gordos, Frank Bros, all those guys, of course, Jake and everybody in the Discord, Jeb, AJ, all those people. It's just like they really kind of keep this thing rolling and keep elevating it for us, I feel like, and helping us elevate it, at least ourselves, if nothing else. So just really appreciate everybody in there and want more people to join us. So love that stuff.
Yeah, with that, you follow us on Twitter, Dynasty Underdog, at Uriah Dawkins, at DFF. Join our Discord, check out the YouTube, all that good stuff. See you guys next week, and have a good night.
Peace out.